howdy, and welcome to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. And we are super lucky to have our recurring guest here. She's been with us before, not all that long ago. And she hails from the faraway land down under, the land of sunshine and sharks, sunny and beautiful Australia. And so welcome back to the show again, Sherri. Hi, Sherri.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Great to have you back. I know you're just chomping at the bit to be back on the show again. I just, had you like pestering me all the time. It's just the opposite. She's been super busy, and she was very gracious to give me a few minutes to be on the show again. But Sherri has had a lot of really interesting experiences with these critters over the course of her life. And so I thought it'd be great to have her on to be able to tell us a few more of them to us. And she also had an encounter with another type of Australian cryptid, maybe an encounter with them. It kind of looks like it, sounds like it. But anyway, with that, I'll just let Sherri take it away then. What encounters do you want to share with us tonight?
Cool. Well, I know you were speaking of the Junjudee.
Oh, yeah.
So before I forget, I might just get that one out of the way.
All right. Well, first, before you go, let the viewers know. Basically, do you want to tell them, or should I tell them what's a Junjudee?
From what I've heard, Junjudee seem to be a smaller race of, I guess, what people would refer to as a Bigfoot. Somewhat similar, not the same, yet smaller, with different characteristics.
And how big do these guys get? What do they say generally down there, height-wise?
Well, the funny thing is there seems to be conflicting reports about what they look like, their height, and their physical appearance. From what I've found, there seems to be two different classes. One seems to be like a bigger man sort of being. So he's more closer to what you would think of, say, a small Aboriginal man. They're usually around about 5 foot. I haven't heard any reports bigger than around about 5 foot, but they're usually lean, muscular, almost like a hunter in a sorts. Then you've got the smaller type, which I've heard seem to be more of a different physical shape. Small, let's say, I think about 3 to about 3.5 foot high. That's the biggest that I've heard reported. But these guys seem to be more thickly covered in a thicker layer of hair. They seem to have a different body as well. So they don't walk in the same way. They seem to be really, really incredibly fast. So even if you do kind of encounter one, you could just, I guess, fob it off as being a blur. They're that fast. But that's just a general overview, I guess.
Well, that's very interesting. For parallels, we do have something similar here in North America that we get reports of, which would be the albatawitch over in Pennsylvania, the apple snitches. And
yes.
There's a few other parts of the country where we've had reports of these little mini squatch, and they're sort of too small and unaccompanied to be young Sasquatch. At that size, the mom or daddy would be right there. And they're super aggressive. I had a friend that got chased out of the woods by one over here in Washington State, and then a couple days later it showed up at her house trying to eat one of her cats, and she had to go chase it out of the yard to the steel bar. So this was not a baby Sasquatch.
Well, they are known for having amazing strength as well, well beyond what one would think this tiny creature is capable of. So
exactly. Well, I mean, so do the primates, the great apes.
True.
The chimpanzees and stuff aren't as big
Very
as us.
true.
They're way stronger than we are. and it sounds like the albatwitch or the mini Sasquatches that we have over here are sort of in the size range of the second type of Junjudee that you were talking about, more in the like 3 to 4 foot sort of range.
Yeah. And one key detail that I keep encountering in I guess, oral traditions is that even the hairy men themselves dread these creatures. They are known as a devil, or, the worst of the worst creature. You know, if
So
anything,
wait. The local name for him is Devil.
Well, that's what I've heard them referred to by Murray people that I grew up
I've
with.
actually heard that before. I wasn't sure if it was the Junjudee they were talking about. So apparently calling it Devil once wasn't sufficient.
Correct.
Okay. Just got to drive this one home. You know, if it was any more dangerous, we'd give it the name 3 times.
Well, a lot of these stories are told to children too, so I don't know if that's like, you know, like you said, driving at home.
Well, God, they may be child-sized, but no human child would have a snowflake's chance in hell against one of those things if they, if it came down to it.
Oh, no. Oh, Lord, no. Yeah, and the funny thing is, all the stories that I've heard is that even the biggest hairy men, the big hairy men, even they will not go near them. They won't be anywhere in the vicinity of them. They fear them, from what I have heard.
Wow. That's some creepy stuff. So you had an encounter where you think you actually ran into these guys.
Well, yeah. See, I was actually camping at the time. We're in New South Wales, along the border ranges there, and just camped up on a private property. It was a big, I guess, 4-wheel drive property where you could take your 4-wheel drive and test it on all the tracks.
Right.
And beautiful place. Surrounded by national forest, so it was really very old growth forest. 1,000-year-old fig trees.
Can you tell us which forest?
Yes. I know the name of it. Near Mount Lindsay. So it borders Mount Lindsay National Park.
I'll look it up. I'll find it.
Yeah, definitely. Have a look. It's beautiful.
I want to show everybody pictures while we're talking about it, of course. So I got to know.
Yeah. Make it relevant. So, we were just camping one afternoon. The funny thing is, when things started happening straight off the bat, the first thing I noticed was that there was no sign of hairy men anywhere. I'll just put that out there straight away. Quiet afternoon, beautiful day. Actually, everyone's pretty much sleeping in camp. There was someone sleeping in the hammock. Someone was cooking bacon or something, on the little stove cooktop. And everyone else was kind of busied away from the camp doing their own thing. So I'm kind of laying in my hammock, just lazing there with my arm over my eyes. And I started getting these yanks on my thumb, like a really hard yank. And every time I kind of, remove my arm from my eyes to try and see what it was, all I could see was this black, and I'm only going to say fluffy because it was like a fluffy cat. When the breeze blew, I guess its hair blew in the breeze, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So it was, just a big black fluffy blur, probably 1.5 foot high, but I believe it was on all fours because I couldn't see any back of the head. All I could see was like the sloping back and the under pads of its feet, I'm going to say, because it had like a padded appearance on the bottom of its feet. So, all I saw was the blur. I thought, right, I'm going to catch this little thing. I know something's there in it. Well, I'll not catch it, but I'm going to figure out what it is because I know I'm not completely crazy. I've seen it twice now. Something's messing with me, and I'm going to find out what it is. So went back to relaxing, put my arm back over my eyes, let it yank my thumb quite a few times more, and just ignored it. Lulling it into a false sense of security.
Right.
Yeah, sure. So as I'm laying there for about another 10, 15 minutes, the girl who was in her hammock across the other side of the camp from me, she kind of jumped up all of a sudden. And I saw her because I was kind of peeking through my arm. I had a little gap that I could just see a little bit through, and I was watching the scenery. I saw her jump. She looks over at me. I said, what's wrong? She goes, did you just see anyone come and pull my thumb? I know it sounds stupid. I know it sounds ridiculous, but did someone just pull my thumb? I said, no, I didn't see anyone. Your other half's cooking right now. He's on the other side of the camp. We're the only 3 here. And she kind of just looked at me funny, like, oh, that's not good. no need to, freak out and become prey item. So kind of just said to her, all good, man, just go back to relax. And if it happens again, then we'll look into it. So it happened again. Her thumb got yanked after about another 30 seconds, if that. She gets up, goes and questions the other half, quite angrily, like, well, why are you pulling my thumb? And he said, babe, I'm not pulling your thumb. I'm just here cooking. And they were a bit confused and frustrated and went back to what they were doing. I was determined to figure out what this thing was, and I knew he'd come back. So I just kicked back in my hammock and, pretended like I couldn't see anything, arm over my eyes, but I still had that little gap to be able to see out. So I think about 10, 15 minutes went past. I was almost ready to give up when I saw my mate who was cooking there. He turned his back and something fell off the table. So I looked over in that direction. Look back again. Here comes this black blur. Every single time my mate would turn his back and do something else, this black blur would fly in underneath the table, whack something off the table itself, like his tongs or the spray oil. He kept knocking things off, but it's like he would grab them, run halfway back to the brush line with it and drop it. And he would disappear, whatever this blur was, would disappear just behind the brush. So Andy was getting a bit confused, couldn't find his oil, kind of walks towards the brush line to go pick it up. As he does, he picks it up, turns around, the black blur comes back again, comes and takes his spatula and does the same thing with it. And he runs, yeah, thank you. This black blur runs back to the brush line and drops it just in front of the brush line. Okay, so I'm watching this unfold, pretending that I can't see, and it was at that point that I went, right, this is getting nefarious. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like this at all. So I just got up calmly. My mate's looking around for his stuff, and I've pointed out the spatula. He was a bit closer to it than I was, so he went to go pick it up. I just didn't feel right, hey, so I followed him right up to that spatula, and I held onto the back of his shirt. I don't know why, but I had this bad feeling like, you little prick, you are luring him to the edge of the bush so you can grab him and just, boom, he'd be gone. No one would have seen it happen. It would have disappeared.
Yeah, he could have had a whole pile of Junjudee sitting just inside the bush ready to nab somebody.
Yeah, like either way, it was just starting to get really suspect, like they were luring him towards the brush line. So I kind of cut that off at the knees and just sat right next to him while he was cooking. I pulled up a chair and there I sat right next to that table just watching the brush line the whole time, making sure they weren't coming back to mess with him. Poor bugger.
Maybe they were thinking they were going to mug him and then steal the bacon while he was unconscious.
Well, that's probably the best of what could happen.
Quick, boys, knock him out. Grab the bacon.
I don't know about you, man, but I prepare for the worst and hope for the best. It's just the way I am.
Well, when you were watching the black blurs, you describe it running across there, did it look like it was on 2 legs or on 4?
On 4.
On 4. And you're saying this is only like 1.5 feet tall?
Sorry, I'm literally just measuring it out with my hand. Yep, 1.5 feet tall.
So even if he was standing up, he'd still be like 3 feet maybe. So
yeah,
really little, and this, again, you sort of like briefly mentioned this. You didn't tell me the whole story before, but the reason that I brought up Junjudee at that point was just like, if it was a baby yowie, the adults wouldn't let it get away with that kind of stuff.
Thank you. Not only that, I have never, ever seen any hairy man move in that fashion. Like the way they moved, it was like a blur, and I've never seen a hairy man move like that. That's next level.
Yeah, I've heard from, witnesses and, some of the people I've had on my show that, Bigfoot can move ridiculously fast. It's hard to even eye on them. But according to some of the other witnesses, the little people are like the next level in ridiculous high speed. It's like watching one of those old Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner, where the Roadrunner dip, dip, boom, and there's just this cloud of dust, and you don't even see him move. There's just like barely even a blur there. And that's about how they describe it. The eyewitnesses describe it. It's just like cartoonishly fast. These things take off so fast, you literally can't keep your eye on them. It's just a blur.
Well, that is exactly the thing that pinpointed my attention to it. Was that when this hairy blur took off, my brain could only physically see it for a few frames. My eyes only caught it for just a few frames, and I was surprised I got that. And as it disappeared, all the brush and everything that it had brushed was still swaying. There was no breeze, but it took a fair while, a few seconds, for the brush to stop swaying. It had that much of a force upon it.
Hit it pretty fast. In other words, high velocity. It kind of makes me wonder why he was over there yanking your thumb too. What was that all about? Trying to get your attention, get you to come over to the woods?
Well, oh my God! Actually, it's so funny that you asked me that, man. Thank you so much, because I totally left out one tiny little detail too. What made me really kind of try and outsmart this little thing was the fact that it yanked my thumb. Like I said, it did it a few times, and I could never get a clear glimpse of it. The last time it yanked my thumb, I was poised like a cat, ready to just kind of flip out of the hammock, literally just flip upside down and kind of land on top of it. That was my whole plan at the time. I did that, and I literally only got like a hand swoosh through the long hair. Like it was, I guess my reaction was less than a second. It was flip, bloop, and it was already just gone out of arm's reach. And that was the first glimpse that I got of it actually, its feet up in the air, the soft pads underneath. Crazy.
Well, maybe
man.
That's why he came back and tried it again, because he thought it was hilarious watching you flop on your face, and he'd see if he could get you to do it again.
Because I actually landed on all fours, landed properly. Come on, cat-like reflexes.
Well, you're going to turn over and land that way. Yeah, it wasn't like a sudden surprise or something. You're planning on it.
Yeah, I was trying to be tricky, but probably didn't turn out that way.
I don't know if I would have kept doing that. I mean, there's something yanking on my thumb. It's some furry thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's going to come back and try and bite my thumb off the next time.
Well, that's the funny thing. I could tell straight away. If something was yanking my thumb, it was either human or possum. There's nothing else that has opposable thumbs, I guess the only creatures here that have opposable thumbs really are the marsupials, and they're not out during the day, and they don't generally just come and yank your thumb. They'll come and bite your thumb, yeah, but not yank it.
Yeah.
I actually felt the fingers wrap around, like the whole hand wrapped around my thumb and yanked it with force. So just feeling that, I didn't actually react the first time because I guess I've experienced that before, just bigger hands, but I knew straight away that was a hand. And if I'm not going crazy, it'll happen again. And it did.
Yeah.
Again and again.
Again and again. God, well, that's pretty creepy. It's a good thing nothing else happened there, because like you said, they do have a bad reputation. What with them being called devil twice, there must be some reason for that. The other thing this brings to mind is the encounter Caveman had, where he had the little people in his old house there for a short period of time, and one of them crawled up on the bed and grabbed his thumb and woke him up.
Oh.
Yeah. And he got to watch it scramble and run into I think it was a closet. There was a hole in the wall or something that it went through, which he immediately boarded up and everything, so they wouldn't be in the house anymore. But same sort of thing. It crawled up on the bed. I'm almost sure that's what he said. It was either a finger or it pulled his thumb.
Yeah, and it's not like a pull. It yanks it with force. It's enough to wake you up, in not a happy state.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so weird. It just makes you wonder why are they doing that? I mean, that's really strange.
I guess too, when you think about it. Kids do the same and they always go for the thumb. You know what I mean? You'll be sleeping, having a nap. They'll go and yank your thumb, but they never go and yank your fingers. They'll always grab the thumb and yank it. So I don't know why it's a favorite, but it seems to be.
Well, the other thing that's counterintuitive is if they're sneaking around being stealthy, stealing food or whatever, why are they trying to get your attention?
Yeah, that's just being sneaky, that is.
That's just really, really weird and creepy. So, let's talk about some. So was that it for that encounter then?
Yeah, that was it. Did not hear a peep out of them after that.
All right. Well, let's go on to some of your other Yowie encounters then. I know you had mentioned before we started recording that you were talking about how the recent episode with Caveman had jogged your memory about some of the stuff that's happened to you has been very similar to the stuff that's happened to him, even though he's in New Mexico and you're in Australia. So if there's any of that parallel stuff you want to bring up, that's a great time to jump into it.
Yeah, why not? Well, I guess immediately, as soon as I started listening to Caveman's story about the funny little kid who used to, play kick the can with him, that started bringing back a lot of memories that cracked me up. Because as a kid, I guess I had quite a few similar encounters, playing Spotlight. That was one of our favorite games. I don't know if you know it. You go out with a torch, whole bunch of kids, one person's it. They have to go find the other people. When you find someone, you spotlight them with a torch. They're it.
And then you throw a pitchfork at them.
Yeah, that's the one. You know it. You played this game.
It's an old medieval game, yeah. Torches and pitchfork. I think by torch, that's the Australian word for flashlight, right?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, flashlight.
Is everybody in the North America here is just going, where there's like a herd of peasants going to Frankenstein's castle here or something, an angry mob or like flashlight. So you're out with flashlights, playing flashlight tag, torch tag, middle of the night.
Yeah. I guess in summer, because it's so hot, kids go a bit crazy in summer. So, usually let them outside, go play Spotlight. I mean,
during the middle of the summer, you can't run around during the day and go crazy because you'll have heat stroke. So, that's why the parents would let the kids go run around and be crazy at night. We got to do the same thing. And our parents lacked discretion because they let us do that. But,
well, I guess where we grew up too, I think the worst thing you were probably going to encounter was either a snake or a big kangaroo or a plover, and they're a bird. So,
Yeah. I mean, really, where I was at, the only things we had to worry about running into playing flashlight tag in the dark could be like mountain lions, timber wolves, bears, or wendigo. Other than that, there was nothing to be afraid of in the dark there.
Yeah, see? Exactly. We just have to deal with the creepy crawlies and, copping a massive spider.
And of course,
in the
what
face.
I'm alluding to here is that the parents are well aware of the fact that 3 of those 4 creatures existed. But go play in the woods. The odds are, if the odds fail, then I got one less kid to feed. So go ahead.
We used to play Spotlight a lot, and for instance, one night there was a kid who just walked up on our game, and I just happened to be it. And this kid was wearing a big hairy coat and pants, hairy pants for some reason as well. He did speak, but he said a couple of words that I didn't understand. I thought he was just, like a Russian or a German accent or something like that. I wasn't sure. So I just thought he was a new kid in the area.
Was this middle of the summer? So.
Yep. Yeah, so height of summer.
How old were you?
At this point, I was probably 11, 10, 11, yeah.
Did it occur to you that it was weird that this kid had fur pants on in the middle of the summer?
A little bit, but I guess you don't really think about it. They look like a human. They look like us. They just look like they're wearing a big jumper.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kids, don't think about it too much.
God.
So, there was many an occasion when he'd come down and join Spotlight. But the thing was, he never liked being spotlighted. And I must say, if you could actually spotlight him, you were doing really, really well. Really good. I think the most you'd ever get was like a butt cheek or a leg.
That was about it.
Like,
you got to be able to land anywhere near him. Boom, he was out of it.
Yeah. Oh, like in a flash. Gone. Out of here. So yeah, the funny thing is, he used to follow me around in particular, which used to annoy me because when I was hiding and stuff like that, he used to give me away. You know, these big, heavy, bloody footsteps. You know, I'd be hiding behind a tree. The whole group would be walking past this tree and I'd just be edging around it, just out of their line of sight. And this fellow would just walk out of the bushes behind me, just tromping up all the bloody broken sticks and crap, you know, just and then, yeah, thank you, and then boom, they'd spotlight me.
But they wouldn't get him because he was too fast, so he was probably thinking that was funny too. Getting over it.
Well, I think too, a lot of the times because he always stuck behind me. He never liked to be in front of me. Because he was always behind me, he'd stick up next to the brush, and unless you directly spotlighted him, which good luck, you wouldn't actually notice that it wasn't a tree. It just looked like two big stumps joined into one big tree.
Right.
Yeah.
So was he kid size, like roughly the size of you guys then?
He was a bit bigger than me, and I was probably 1.1 meters. So I reckon he would have been about 1.2, 1.3 maybe. Yeah, he wasn't too much taller, but he was thicker. Oh man, he was like a big, just a big hairy block with legs.
So again, this may be one of those situations where with like Kevin and Glag and Caveman with a Squatchlet that was playing kick the can with him, and some of these other encounters that you hear about where the Squatchlet or the Yowie-let comes out and plays with people, that they're the same height as the kids, which seems to indicate that they're probably half the age. And it's kind of weird that this has come up like 3 or 4 times now, where it's somebody that's around like the age of 8 to 10, but they end up playing with these weird furry kids at night.
That you never see during the day.
You never see during the day, and and if you go toward the light, they won't go toward it, and and they don't really talk. They'll like make noises and giggle and stuff, but and they're being roughly the size of these like 8 or 10-year-old kids. You got to figure these Squatchers are probably like 4 or 5 years old. So they're like barely old enough to be able to get away from the folks and go get into mischief. And what are they doing? Finding a pack of human kids about the same size as them and going, I'll go play with the humans for a while. They'll probably never even notice. Well,
I did notice over the years, actually, that, I noticed that the same thing kept occurring. I don't know if he was the same guy or the same hairy dude. I'm pretty sure it was. He seemed to love giving me away. Seemed to be a fun game. Pretty sure it was the same one, but I'm so sure it was his parents that used to come down to that same park. I'm pretty sure he was never, ever alone, because sometimes when I'd be looking for the other kids, I'd hear these massive footsteps in amongst a clump of trees, and, I'd look underneath, as you do, because you can't see into bushes. You kind of bob down and look up underneath the brush.
Right.
So I'd look under there and spotlight it, and I'd see what looks like a big hairy tree next to another big hairy tree trunk.
Right.
Oh, and then there was another 2 big hairy tree trunks next to it.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen the big hairy tree trunks before. Very disconcerting.
Yeah, and then they growl and grumble, like, I can't do it. That's pathetic, but but yeah, no, he was never, ever alone. That's one thing I noticed, because the first time I kind of cottoned on, the first thing that flipped in my brain was, why are you alone? You shouldn't be alone.
Right.
We're not going to be alone. And I actually went. That night, I realized that I went walking around the park looking for, I guess, his elders, because I had this inkling. I just kind of thought I knew he shouldn't be alone. He's got to have parents here.
So
for
right
some
away,
weird
the
reason.
first time he ended up playing with you guys, you figured out this isn't a human kid. This is a Yowie.
Not the first time, no.
Okay.
It actually took, I think, maybe five or six different times, and it was only later on that it kind of clicked in my head what those big hairy trunks were, so to say, big hairy legs attached to a big hairy body, attached to a big head that had shiny eyes and growled at you.
Yowies, yeah. And that's interesting to me that they apparently were letting him get away with this repeatedly. They would bring him down there and let him play with you guys and just stand back and watch.
Yeah. And I found that they weren't even staying at a distance. There was a big clump of bushes kind of right in the middle of, I guess, the park, the play area, where we had designated, inner bounds, outer bounds, and all that crap. And the two big fellas, they used to stand in the middle of that clump of trees and bushes. So right in the middle of the field of play. And that's how I found them, obviously, because I thought that was someone in the bush. And yeah, you see the legs, you go, there's some really big hairy tree trunks attached to a really big hairy body. Oh, geez, nope, they don't seem to like me shining the flashlight in their eyes. Okay, yeah. Maybe don't do that.
No, they crawl when I do that, and their eyes light up. I don't think that's a good thing.
Exactly, but as soon as you turn the torch off, quiet, silent again. So,
on the positive side, having them around, you guys were out there in the dark, kids out in the dark playing around in the woods. At least they didn't seem like they were hostile at all. They were like okay with you playing with their Yowie lit. And, as long as you got a couple of big adult Yowies hanging out right there, it's not like you can get jumped by Dingo Man or something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Or just,
is there a Dingo Man? I hope there isn't such a thing.
I don't know if there's a Dingo Man, but I've seen something that's probably of dog origin, but, need not get into that on this show, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
By people, Aussie canids. It wouldn't surprise me. I've heard that there's plenty of reports in, New Zealand land there, south of you.
Oh, true. Yay.
Yeah, you know about it too, yeah. There's some reason that they make those hunters sleep in huts even though there's no large predators there for some reason.
I must tell you too, before I forget, one particular time that we were playing in this particular park, we were playing Spotlight, and I was with my friend who lived across the road from me. We took her younger siblings down to the park to play. So there's probably about 7 of us all playing away, and all of a sudden, I hear this scream. So I go running towards the scream. It's her little sister. And she's bawling her eyes out. She's absolutely distraught. So I've tried to get some sense out of her, asked her what's wrong, what's happened, have you been bitten? I thought she was bitten by something. And she just looked at me with these tears in her eyes and said, there's a man over there and he keeps giggling and he's running in the bushes. And I, like an idiot, I kind of giggled because I knew what it was. They're always in the bloody bushes. Which was probably a bad thing, and that made her a bit more scared. I said, look, it's all good. It's okay. We're just going to walk back up to the house. You're going to go see your mum, go jump in bed. It's all good. Well, she was that freaked out, I couldn't get her to walk. I tried to literally hold her and walk her back up to the house, but she kicked off like a possum running from a dog. She just legged it back to the house. Probably not a good thing to do, but she made it there.
Wow. Yeah, lucky she didn't trigger any chase response. But if it was just running around it's giggling, it was probably just having fun. And kids out in the woods, let's go play.
Exactly. So actually all of the siblings followed her up back into the house, and I was a bit upset, because I still wanted to play Spotlight. Well, that was pretty normal to me.
Yeah.
That was very, very normal to me.
So you had a very weird upbringing because you had freaking yowies around you all the time. You know, that's kind of like not normal.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
Yeah, I'm kind of like starting to think that.
Well, to be fair, I was, I guess, always the weird, odd one out. Like, I never had many friends. You know, I was always that weird little child doing weird shit. So it's starting to make a little bit more sense now why.
Well, to be honest, I wouldn't have had my encounters if I wasn't playing Junior Mountain Man and, you know, being 10 years old and thinking that I could go wander off 3 miles in the woods by myself. Derp.
So yeah, in that instance there, it actually happened that I got in trouble for the whole incident. You know, all the kids went back up to the house. They told the parents what had happened, and they were a Murray family. They were Islander, and they obviously have, you know, oral tradition of the hairy man in their culture. And my friend's mother proceeded to scold me because I had put her children in danger. Wasn't my idea to play Spotlight, but, you know, all good.
So they figured that the Morho man was going to eat the kids?
Yeah. That's basically what they told me when I asked them why, you know, like, how were they in danger? They just said to me, you know, don't ever go near a hairy man. Don't you ever go out at nighttime alone by yourself. You know, if you hear those hairy men, run. Which, you know, I don't know. I just use my common sense and do what I do because it seemed to have worked for me for this long.
Well, at that point, when you finally get the warning, you had already had like how many encounters with them?
Yeah. So to me, it actually didn't make sense. Like, I was wondering where she was getting her information from.
Yeah. You're like, I'm out playing flashlight tag with these guys all the time. What are you talking about? Maybe the Morho man is different than the Yowies and they're dangerous or something. I don't know what you're talking.
Well, I'm starting to realize just how confused I was as a child because when she started telling me these things, I was kind of convinced that she had a source, like she was talking to him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I did kind of question her and say, how do you know these things? How do you know of them? Do you speak to them? And she looked at me really, really funny. And then she said, no, it's part of our tradition.
She looked at you like, are you speaking to them?
Yeah, well, we had a chat on a second occasion. I think that was probably one of the second or third times. I just so happened to be walking with that same particular friend. We were walking home from school, and she actually alerted me to somebody calling my name from the bushes. You know, Sherri, can you hear that? Hear what? Someone's calling your name. And then we'd stop and listen, and sure enough, I'd hear my name being called from the bushes. So I'd go to investigate, and that kind of made her really uneasy. You know, straight up, she was just like, nah, don't go near that. I'm not coming with you, Sherri. I'm staying right here.
Yeah.
So, I guess on the closest occasion that I got in that instance, walking home, heard my name being called. She was with me. She's the one who actually heard it. She alerted me to it and told me where it was coming from. She pointed to the bush, but she wouldn't go anywhere near it. So I walked up to the bush. I said, who's there? Are you calling my name? Are you calling me? You know? And I did get a reply back, but it didn't sound like a purely human voice. You know, it was really, really guttural. And the reply that came back was, yeah, where? And as soon as I heard that, my friend behind me has actually called out. She's gone, Sherri, no, stop it. It's talking. Let's go home. You know, let's get out of here. I said, why? What is it? She's looked at me and gone, Sherri, that's a yowie.
Yeah,
let's go.
Just told you that. Yeah, you were.
Oh, thank you. That was a lot closer, you know, to what it sounded like. Very manly. Yes, perfect. Like he didn't want to say it too loud. I actually thought there was people coming because of the way he said it.
Well, apparently that's where you guys got the word Yowie from now. We got that one figured out. Oh, my God.
Well, it's funny. The whole time she's standing there going, Sherri, don't be an idiot. This is like every bloody horror movie out there. Let's go home. Quick, let's go. I'm going home. See ya. She's walked off. And I kind of just turned back to the bushes. I said, man, what did you say? What are you? Who are you? Something like that. And the same response came back. Yeah, where? Yeah. And I tried to mimic that sound. So I said it out loud. Yeah, where? And he got angry because I kind of pronounced it ihwe instead of ehwe. So he said it again, more pronounced and a bit frustrated, ya where, ya where. And then I've, repeated it a couple of times and gotten it right. And that's when I realized, oh no, she's probably halfway home from now. I better catch up to her before I have to deal with her mum.
Wow.
So I kind of just turned back to the bushes there because I couldn't see anything. I wasn't there for long enough to investigate. That was the problem. But I kind of just said, all right, man, sorry, but I got to go home now because I'm going to get in trouble. So I'll have to talk with you another day. I'll see you another day. Bye, man. That was about the conversation. Left.
And you're going, okay, what am I talking to? I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
Was I just having a language lesson with?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was one of the locals or, it seemed very, very bloody familiar. I had an inkling that I knew who or what it was. I had an inkling I'd encountered them time and time before, but because I couldn't see anything at all, I couldn't be sure. So anyway, I caught back up to her. I legged it all the way back to her house. I caught up with her, and she had just gotten in the door and told her mum what had happened. Oh, my heart sank so bad. So she took me outside and had a chat with me about the hairy man and why I shouldn't talk to him.
Especially not getting language lessons from them.
Well, yes. Well, hey, you got to think by this time I at least had a little bit of smarts about me because she did start speaking about, do you know what that is? And I just played dumb and went, nope, no idea. What is it? She goes, oh, they're a hairy race of people who live in the bush. You might have heard them being called a yowie before. And I just looked at her and said, nope, I'd never, ever heard that word until your daughter just told me before. And I was about to tell her what he said, the Ya'ewe, but it didn't feel right to me. I thought, nah, I'm only going to get in trouble. Nothing good is going to come of this, and I don't want to get in trouble with the big hairy fellas out of anything. Probably
you don't want to correct the adult and say, oh, the Yowie says that it's actually pronounced Ya'ewe, not Yowie.
Dob yourself in. Come on.
That'd kind of blow your cover. Oh, I never heard the word Yowie before. Sounds a lot like what that hairy guy down in the bush was just trying to say, though.
But, she was just under the impression that, they're not to be trusted. They're tricksters, not to be trusted, and they will carry women away and they will take you away and you'll never be seen again. So...
Yeah, there's the parallel with last episode where they break into Caveman's house and they're like one of them's trying to feel up his wife while she's sleeping.
Yeah. Plenty of stories out there. You never know their motivation, so it's best to be on the safe side. Simple. Funny thing is, Ben, like you said, I've been a very confused child. And what even confused me more was that I thought to myself that same day, I was thinking about it over and over in my head, and all I could come to was the fact that why wouldn't he call my friend's name? Why wouldn't he call for her? She's Murray. Let's face it, she's got more culture in common with the hairy men. Like, she's, her culture has a lot more experience with them than mine. Geez, I'm English and Maori. Geez, like,
Right.
to me, I thought if anyone should have a better connection with, I guess, the land and them themselves, it wouldn't be me. It should have been her.
Well, could it just been familiarity that he was watching you so much that he just got used to watching you and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Figured out what your name was.
Oh, yes. That's usually the first thing that would come up. So if one of the hairy fellas knew me, you'd know it because your name would be called. And it would not be discreet. It would be while you were talking with friends in the middle of the day, scare the shit out of everyone. And of course, you just have to play it down like, oh, yeah, no, I don't know what the hell that was. It was probably a bird. Like,
oh, did you guys hear something? I didn't hear something. Yeah, I've heard a bunch of stories like this where this sort of thing has happened with other people, and some of them are very disturbing, where I remember one guy heard his name called a few times. It was just off the edge of the camp that he was in down the trail, so he walked down the trail a little ways, and he got part way down there and realized there should be nobody from the camp in that area calling his name. So he kind of stopped, and the trail dipped down, and there was like thick pine forest on both sides, but closed in, got kind of dark and scary. And right after he stopped, he heard this voice, which didn't sound like the voice originally, again calling his name and saying, "Come down here." And at which point the hair on his neck stood up, and he went, "No," because he didn't recognize that voice at all. It didn't even sound human. And he turned around and beat ass back to camp.
You are being beckoned.
Yeah, by what, though?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got 3 older brothers. They used to tell me stories when I was really young about how hyenas in Africa could mimic people's speech, and that they would actually they would call your name in the middle of the night to lure you out of your tent and eat you. So as you're busying yourself amongst the day, people calling your name, you would respond to your name being called, and they would learn how to pronounce it. So yeah, good old brothers. Set me up well. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, make you think that there's actually hyenas running around the bush in Australia for some weird reason. Thanks, brothers.
Yeah. Very confused child.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, so what other interesting encounters do you have that you want to share with us this time around?
Actually, just quickly, while we were speaking about Spotlight,
was there anything else that related to that caveman episode you wanted to bring up? Because I know you said there was a couple things about that.
Yeah. So I remember there was one hairy fella, and he was actually quite big. It's like he was, I guess, mature. Definitely a he. He used to hang out down near the beach a lot. So where we lived was surrounded by beach and bush. There was like a main beach where all the surf lifesavers were, and that's where most of the people would swim. If you're walking along this beach and you followed it towards the mouth of the river, you would reach more secluded areas. So this is where I like to spend a lot of my time, because it was beach, it was plentiful, there was lots of things to eat, but there were not many people at all around. Very, very few, if any. So a lot of days I'd be out walking the dog. Basically, this dog would just come everywhere with me. We'd wander around the bush and, just find spots, eat along the way, and, keep exploring. So this dog used to come with me all the time. She'd sit on the beach while I swam. And I noticed so many times that I'd go there, I'd be swimming, and I'd see this fella who was wearing like a big black hairy suit. And I mean with a hood, fully hooded, fully hairy legs. He always used to emerge from behind a bunch of oyster rocks while I was swimming. He'd kind of pop his head over them and have a look. And when I'd wave at him, he'd stand up, walk up the beach and into the bush again, just straight into the bush and disappear. I guess I never really thought much about it, other than the fact that the dog was always a little too interested in him. You know, I always thought to myself, what is that dude doing at the beach, half in the water, with this massive coat on? What? I don't know. That's just weird. Don't think too much about it, Sherri. Keep swimming. So yeah, this happened quite a few times, and one day I was sitting probably 5 meters off these oyster rocks, and the dog kept looking down towards the rocks. I kind of turned my head to the side, and I see this fella standing there looking at us in his big hairy suit from just behind the oyster rocks there, and he was just looking. Had a handful of something, and he just continued to look at us for probably about 5-10 seconds. Started to walk away, but he kind of stopped halfway, looked back up at me, and he threw his arm up. I guess someone could construe it as a wave, but I kind of saw it as, the way you throw your hand up when someone's just ruined something.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Like, oh, what'd you do that for?
Yeah.
So he's kind of just kept walking, and I was a little bit taken aback. I went, oh, geez, sorry, I didn't mean to ruin your little spot here. You know, enjoying the sun in your coat. All right.
How old were you when this was going on?
I guess I was probably 12, 13. Like, I was spending a lot of time by myself, because at that time I just didn't have a lot of friends, or didn't really have any real friends, I guess.
Well, again, with all your previous experiences, by this point, you probably suspected that maybe this was a yowie.
Oh, yeah, by about the 5th time, my brain kind of clicked. And it literally clicked in a split second and went, oh, you're an idiot, Sherri, seriously. So every time I would go to that area, I would kind of stop, I guess, 200 meters from where I would normally sit. So from the time when I realized what was going on, I gave him more space, gave him his own space, and I kind of stayed in my own cove.
I wonder if that was like his favorite spot for getting shellfish or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like it, like I'd be swimming, and as long as I was swimming, as long as I was still out in the water, he would feel free to keep scavenging amongst the rocks. And that's what he was doing. He was scavenging for something. But as soon as I would come out of the surf, he would stand up and walk back into the bush. But I was curious as to what he was scavenging when I figured it out, obviously. I went and had a look, and I found that all of the limpets off one side of the rock were completely gone. All of the oysters were still on the rock itself. So,
wow.
It's a bypass.
Intuitive, yeah.
But having said that, the limpets do have a lot of minerals and good fats in them as well.
Yeah. They've been eating that kind of stuff probably longer than us. They probably know which ones are better to eat, and we're just eating the lousy ones. Thinking, these are yummy.
Yeah, very, very nutritious, but they stink like hell, and they're not the tastiest to the human palate.
Yeah.
But, picky eaters we are. Just saying.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird, because it seems like animals with a more finely attuned sense of smell like eating things that are stink. They're horrible smelling to us with our lousy sense of smell. Like, how often have you seen dogs eat things that are like, oh, God, no. Seriously. I can smell that 20 feet away, and you want to eat it? And, like, you could probably smell that 2 miles away, and you still want to eat it.
Nutritious.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you had, in this area that you were growing up in, you had a lot of regular activity around there. They must have been watching you from the time you were a little kid.
Well, I guess that would be true only because I guess I never moved too far away. I was always in the same vicinity. And when I moved to that area, I believe that was actually a lot more plentiful in everything, resources, water, food.
Right.
Yeah, I believe.
Yes, that's sort of what happened with Caveman, because he grew up, they were around all the time where he grew up. But then when he moved up to the mesa there, he's apparently on one of their travel routes and had no idea until he moved there. And then he started having lots of them around all the time.
Yeah, well, like you said, travel routes as well.
Yep, yeah. Now they like to use his place as the wayside rest. Oh, look, it's it's the local truck stop. Let's pull over and get some horse feed and water before we continue on our journey. Oh, let the kids go around back behind his house and break some tiles. That'll keep them busy for a few minutes.
Actually, funny you mentioned that, the tiles. When he was mentioning how it looks like someone's just sat down there and started breaking tiles, just chipping them away with their fingers. It did make me giggle because that is very much a hairy man thing to do. Like, I don't know if you've heard a lot of reports that refer to like stick breaking, but I noticed that when they seem to be sitting around and I guess what we would call chilling, I noticed the younger ones at least, and some of them seem to have like this nervous tick or this nervous behavior where they pick up branches and they just keep breaking them into smaller and smaller pieces. Mm-hmm. And they like doing it with rocks as well. Like, if you've got shale in the area, they love shale. They'll just sit down and just keep breaking it. But
interesting. I wonder if that's some kind of a nervous fidget that they got or something. I know it's been observed by a lot of researchers that they got, whether it's on purpose or just force of habit, they tend to snap little twigs and branches and stuff everywhere. Just as they're walking past, they'll just reach out and grab, snap. And it's like, you don't need to make that damn many trail markers, dude. Why are you guys doing this all the time?
Because it feels good.
Yeah, apparently. I don't know. I think it's just force of habit, really.
Well, I have been guilty for being that person as well. I don't know if you've noticed it, but if you get, say, a group of about 10 people, just sitting around the campfire talking, there's usually at least one person who's a stick breaker, or a fiddler. They'll pick up things on the ground and just keep breaking them into smaller and smaller pieces, rip the labels off beer bottles, things like that. Fiddlers. I
do that too, but I throw it in the fire as soon as I get done. That's why I'm breaking it into smaller pieces, because it gets burned. And unfortunately, sometimes they take big things and try and break them into small pieces by hitting them on a tree. Whoops, that was a mistake.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, that got my tent shaken. Now, not doing that again. Somebody was not too happy about what they thought were tree knocks. And they should have known when the third one, when it went snap, that, well, maybe it wasn't a tree knock, because, I mean, what kind of dumb Bigfoot would pick a log to hit a tree with that would snap, so I don't know.
Come on, give him some credit, jeez.
Yeah, I figured he knew right away when the third one was a snap that it's like, it was just some dumb human whacking a log against a tree. It's not an actual Sasquatch over there. I don't need to go running over and make a territorial display and shake his head, threaten to kill him or anything. I don't need to do that. No, he didn't get the hint. Nobody gave him the memo. So, yeah, that was, once again, fun times at the ghost town of Coloma, getting both sides of my tent whacked into my head alternately as it's grabbing the lodge pole and flinging the tent back and forth violently, and I sit up and I'm getting like bludgeoned on both sides of my head by alternating sides of the tent.
Are you awake in there, Duke? Are you awake?
Yeah. And I scoop, and I've got the cell phone in my pocket, pull it out, and call, because we've got cell phone signal on top of a mountain. Researcher X, who's sleeping in the SUV, it isn't asleep. And I'm like, there's something messing with my tent. Wham, 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 wham. As I'm getting hit in the head, right? Hit the alarm. And she goes, I'm scared. You're in the metal SUV with a dog and 2 loaded pistols. I'm in a nylon tent getting it beaten against my head by a frickin' Bigfoot, and you're too scared to hit the button and hit the car alarm. What's wrong with this picture?
No, don't trouble yourself.
No, so finally she hit the car alarm, and it's of course when she did, then all the lights and everything went off. And my tent was a good at least 30 or 40 feet from the SUV. This thing made it from my tent past the SUV and back into, the darkness again in 4 steps. You could hear it go womp, 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 and it was gone. It was like 80 feet away, and it slapped the side of the SUV as it went past.
So he had a lot of fun that night, yep.
Yep. Us, not so much. Then she was terrified, and she's terrified. The one with the dog and the 2 loaded pistols and the steel vehicles, one was terrified. So anyway, but so I went, giving her a hard time here. I went and sat in the SUV with her, and we both kind of calmed down for a little while. And hilariously enough, our idea of how to calm down was to listen to a podcast. So guess which one we picked? So yeah, we just had a Bigfoot shake the tent and slap the side of the SUV, and we're listening to Wes doing an episode of Sasquatch Chronicles to calm down. Anyway.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, these are the idiots that go look for Bigfoot, folks. Gluttons for terror. Oh, that wasn't scary enough. Let's listen to Sasquatch Chronicles. Get more scary.
Sucker for punishment.
Yeah, gluttons for horror. So have you ever had a very actually scary, because it's like all your encounters are really benign. They were just like the neighbors with fur. Have you ever had an actually scary one?
Actually, yeah, not a really scary one. I know it's one that made my heart definitely race, that's for sure. Where should I begin? All right, so one day let's say I was probably, I'd say about 12, maybe 13, because I was kind of just hit high school kind of time. Beautiful day, nice and hot, out on my own, just exploring as I do. And I'd stopped just for a rest. I think I was just chilling, sitting on the ground, breaking sticks, as you do. And I've heard the footsteps coming, which was pretty usual. It didn't happen all the time. They wouldn't come around every single day, but it was just as soon as you'd forget about them and not be thinking about them, they'd show up.
Right.
That seemed, every time. Whenever you were not thinking about them, they would walk on in. So sitting in a brushy area that had like blinds, I guess you'd say, had lots of wildflower patches. And I've heard the big fella, who I was quite used to in that area, coming. Tromp, 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 tromp. And I just stayed where I was, because I assumed they knew I was there. They always know where you are. So I just sat there, let him do whatever it was that he wanted to do. And he took a seat on the ground, probably about 10 meters behind me and to my left. So I thought nothing too unusual of that. Just, that's how it usually was. They'd come and sit not close to you, but close enough to look at you, but far enough away that you weren't going to bother them. So he was sitting back there, and another 2 walk up in front of me. Uh-oh. They were probably they were kind of more feminine. Straight away, I thought they were females for some weird reason. Like, even the way they walked was very gentle. They didn't crunch, 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 crunch as they walked. They very gently laid their feet on the ground. So yeah, they've come up in front of me, probably 10, 15 meters away. They're about the same distance. And they were looking at something to my right. And they've both sat down for probably about 5 minutes, and I'm just watching birds and things like that, trying not to stare or look for too long. And all of a sudden I heard, it was like running, but the biggest guy you have ever heard, just running like a freight train through the bush. And it stopped probably 50 or so meters just off to my right. So I've got big fella behind me to my left, two girls in front of me, and this is going on to my right. Now I was kind of sitting up against a tree, and I didn't really like the sound of that stomping. Like it didn't sound good, if that makes any sense. So it sounded like someone running up towards you. But it stopped about 50 meters away, and it just stayed there. Stayed still, and I didn't want to peek behind the tree. I didn't even want to see what it was. You know, I knew that big fella. He's cool. Well, he was cool in that sense. He didn't mind if you didn't care about him. He didn't care. But this was a whole different energy. This was like not happy, not happy, Jan. So I'm kind of just sitting there. Everyone's tense. It's like there was this nervous tension in the air. The two girls, they hadn't gotten to their feet, but they were kind of poised, ready to spring up, if that makes any sense.
Right.
This big fella off to my right, whatever it was, started walking towards us and stopped after a few more steps. After that, the females walked way off behind all of us, just went straight past me to my left, straight past the big fellow who was standing behind me, and disappeared into the bush. That's when my heart started kind of thumping, going, oh no, the girls have disappeared. Oh shit. I should probably leave too, but if I get up, I'm going to make myself a target. So I'm probably best just sitting here behind this tree where hopefully it can't see me. So that's what I did. Yeah, just sat there quietly, didn't move a muscle. And after a couple of seconds, the big fella, my nickname for him was Duj or Dujka, because that's what it sounds like when you smack something really hard. That's what he was good at. So Dujka, old mate, he's stood up, slowly and oh so calmly started walking towards this big thing towards my right. Now, I've heard them walk away probably another 10 meters, and I kind of peeked behind the tree to see what was going on. Now, I saw them both standing probably, it would have had to have been at least 20 meters apart, just standing still staring at each other. You know, kind of, I guess, breathing heavy. You could see the whole body move as they breathed. At this point, I was kind of a little bit wary, you know. I wasn't sure whether or not I should stay or leave. So I just stayed put and got the hell back behind my tree. I had no idea what was going to happen, but I knew the safest place for me right then was behind that tree.
Uh-huh.
So as I sat there, I started to hear them proceed to run at each other. Just full pelt, like you could hear them sprinting at each other, those massive footsteps, just doof, 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 doof. And this massive thwap as they collided, just whoosh. And that made me jump, and it kind of made me jump out from behind the tree. So as I did, I looked to see what was going on, and all I saw was this big fella douche just pick the other guy up by his whole body. I guess you would say torso, you know, the big heavy part.
Right.
He just grabbed him straight up over the other side and dumped him into the ground, just body slammed him. Massive thud as he hit the ground, like I felt it through my feet. The ground shook as he smacked the ground. So I was kind of just frozen there because I didn't want to move. Kind of just watching this shit unfold. And it was only when I start to see the fella on the ground move, because I thought he was dead. I thought, oh my God, this is my fault. He's bloody gone and killed this bloke because of me, because I was here. And he wasn't happy about it. But he started to sort of groan and move and get up and walked back away into the bush. And I just very slowly slid back behind that tree and waited to hear those footsteps until I couldn't hear them anymore, until they disappeared into the distance. And it was only when those footsteps disappeared right into the distance, you couldn't hear them anymore, that big fella Douche just casually strolled back to where he was sitting before and sat down. And he was pretty calm. It was, yeah, it was really weird.
Laid the smack down. Was it tombstone pile driver, or was this like a standard pile driver?
I would say it was more like a body slam.
Nice body.
Like all the force was
scoop them up, dump them on their head and back, essentially.
Yeah, straight on his back, not on his head. Definitely on his back, because as he hit the ground, I saw his head kind of ricochet forward, kind of.
It like bounced off of it.
Yes, yeah, like bounced off his chest. Yeah.
Oh.
I just thought it was amazing that this big fella Douche thought nothing of it whatsoever. He was just like, yeah, that was fun. All right,
have you ever considered that it maybe didn't have anything whatsoever to do with you?
Well, I hoped not. I did leave pretty soon after that, and the big fella Douche kind of followed me all the way back to like the main road, where he followed me to the edge of the bush, and he watched me until I disappeared around the corner.
Right. This may have been a rival male that wanted to grab his females.
Well, I'm hoping that, because it was when I got home, I actually realized that I had just started my period. I hadn't realized until I got home. Yeah. And that's kind of when I went, oh, shit.
Yep.
It was me. It wasn't them.
Yeah. Well, it could have been a combination, too. I mean, he smells you and he comes over and is like, hey, there's female Yowies here, too. I'm going to nab them up. And the big guy goes, no, you're not. I'm going to lay the smack down on your Yowie butt.
But, yeah, no, that happened a few times where, like you said, he put the smack down into someone else. And I can tell you, it never worked out for the other dude. I never saw Dushka go down, not once, not ever.
I think the best example of that I heard from North America here was somebody that was watching a couple Sasquatch having an argument apparently over a deer. Neither one of them was gigantic. I think one was like 7 feet tall and the other one was 8 feet tall or something. And they were just like clubbing each other, essentially. One of them would wang the other one so hard that he'd go down on his knees. Then he'd get up and smash the other one so hard he'd go down on his knees. And after a few exchanges, finally the bigger one got up, scooped up the deer, and just bashed the little one in the side of the head with it. Knocked him flat. And then, with the deer. Used the deer for a club. Knocked him in the side of the head with it, knocked him flat, and then threw the deer over his shoulder and walked off with it. And the littler one got up and followed him off into the woods. And then the hiker, hunter, whoever had seen it, decided that now would be a good time to depart the area. And that was all they saw. They left.
Oh, shit. What a once-in-a-lifetime sighting.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, it's not like something you really even want to see. I want to see a couple of Bigfoot beating the living, what out of each other. Kung Fu movies aren't good enough. I want to see a couple of Bigfoot go at it. Oh, my God, no. Go watch some gorillas fight with each other. Well, dear, thanks for being with us and for coming on the show again. Unfortunately, we're sort of like running out of time here at this point, so we're going to have to cut it short. But you're always welcome to come back again in the future if you'd ever like to be on the show again. And we really appreciate you being on here this time, and especially sharing your Junjudee encounter with us. That's just fascinating, and there's so few people that have had that close of an encounter with one where it's touched them, and they've got to look at it several times and see how fast it moves and everything else. So that was just a really cool encounter.
Yeah, no, cheers for having me on, man. I actually remembered an encounter that I think you might find quite funny. So next time we speak, I'll tell you about the camping expedition with the hairy fella who was kind enough to protect us all night from marauding crocodiles.
Oh, good God. Okay, yeah, this should be a fun one, too. Okay, well, you guys got that to look forward to. Next time Sherri's on, yeah, we'll hear that one. And, Caveman teased everybody last show, too, because he had one where he basically walked into one of these things that he hasn't shared yet. So that story's coming up the next time Caveman's on. But anyway, again, thanks for coming on the show, dear. Really appreciate it. And
thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Everybody out there, if you're interested in helping to support this show, we are entirely viewer funded. You can go to paypal.me/World Bigfoot Central. Or if you need CBD products, legal in all 50 states, high quality 60-day money back guarantee. I set up a shop for you guys. You can go to myctfocbd.com/Duke Sullivan and check out my store. All CBD products available there, all good stuff. And part of the cost of the product will go to help fund this channel and this show and keep it coming to you. So, and also I want to say a special shout out to, there are a few people really jumped in this month and sent some fairly decent and sizable donations that made things really happen this month a lot better. I've been having health issues and stuff, and this was really helped me. These guys are just spectacular. I'm not sure that they want me to tell what their names are, so I'm not going to do that, but you guys know who you are. Thank you very much. You're the ones that are responsible for the shows that came out this month, coming out this month. And anybody else, jump on the bandwagon, join the team. No donation too small or too large. I'll take anything to help keep the show coming to you, because I do this entirely with my free time and out of pocket. So appreciate all your help. And for the third and final time, thanks for being on the show, Sherri. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, other than look out for the drop bears. I think it's all been said.
All right, yeah, look out for the drop bears and the kung fu kangaroos down there in Australia. And as to the rest of you out there, make sure to join us for the next episode. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the Puckwudgie. And for God's sake, whatever you do not hug the Wookiee. See you later, folks.